If you want to learn from the same artists who taught us, click the link down below for a free 7-day trial for New Masters Academy, the world's absolute #1 online art school. Thank you, New Masters Academy. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Honey and Absinthe After Hours podcast. Welcome to the end of the world!
We are your hosts. I'm Vincent, a background designer for animation.
And I'm Janet, the ex-Disney artist turned independent creator, and this is a podcast about all things art, business, and whatever we feel like.
Now today we're going to talk about how to save Hollywood, because we all know it's dying.
But before we get into it, make sure to smash that like button. It really helps us out. Thank you.
All right, so I proposed this idea to you a long time ago because I thought it would be really fun, because a lot of people will be like, Hollywood doesn't need saving. I really wanted to talk about, genuinely, seriously, how do we save this art form, you know?
Yeah, and we wanted to share a little bit what we were thinking about what we would do to turn it around for Hollywood, because you guys are hemorrhaging money like crazy right now.
Badly.
But first, we want to discuss why they won't take any of our advice. I was working, and you were actually listening to The Quartering.
Oh, yes.
Jeremy from The Quartering here on YouTube. And he was railing against the Hollywood elites.
As he does.
As he does. As we do. And he was complaining about how they're such elitists, and they think they're better than you, and they think they're smarter than you, and all this stuff. But as I was listening, I was kind of like, Jeremy, you got it so close. You're so close to why they are the way they are. But the thing is, you give them too much credit. The way he explains how they are comes across a little bit like evil villains twirling their mustache. How do I condescend harder
right.
to everyone? And they're not that smart. I think what a lot of people who view LA and Hollywood, what they assume for some reason is that they're people from LA. Mm-hmm. And the thing about Hollywood is most of the people that work in Hollywood aren't from LA. They moved here from somewhere else, and they come here with big dreams of working in Hollywood, and then they accomplish their dreams, and now they're working in Hollywood. So the psychology of where that comes from, where this condescension comes from, they want to feel like they proved everyone wrong from their hometown, wherever they're from, and they made it, because usually they're artists, right? They're like the black sheep of where they're from. Yeah. And a lot of people probably shat on them or
just gave them a hard time. Yeah. Artists are generally really unique people. Yeah. They're really into unique things like anime and Magic the Gathering and things like that. Yeah. Dungeons and Dragons, and not necessarily the jocks.
Yeah.
You know.
So when you come here, you once you make it, there's this air of I need to show up everyone from my hometown. And the best way I could illustrate this to everyone is early on when I first started working, my crew at the time, we were all great friends.
DreamWorks?
Yeah, at DreamWorks. Right. And we were having this conversation, because they had all talked about our ages and what our interests were, and we were bonding, I guess. And I don't know how the topic came up, but the topic of our 10-year high school reunions came up. I was just kind of working and doing my work, and paying attention to the conversation, but not really saying anything yet. And everyone, there were a few people from Florida, some people from the Midwest, and whatever. And one of my coworkers, when they found out I grew up here in LA and now I work here in Hollywood at the time, he joked and laughed and was like, "You mean you're actually from here?" Because there's a joke that like everyone in LA is not from here. During like the holidays, like Thanksgiving, it's a ghost town
It
here.
is.
Everyone goes home wherever they're from. So everyone was like, "Oh, like I can't wait till my." Either they can't wait or they already had their 10-year reunion. They'll say, I can't wait till my 10-year reunion, high school reunion, because I'm going to go back and I'm going to like say, I work at DreamWorks. And
So this was what it was all about.
yeah, so when this was a very new concept to me.
Because you grew up in the suburbs.
Yes, I grew
Yeah.
up in the burbs.
Yeah.
I was poor growing up with a bunch of middle to high income. So like I know what it's like to like relate to like other lower income families, but I also know what it's like to like have friends and relate to people like who are middle income and higher income. So like I grew up fairly diverse in terms of classism stuff, and also like I mean California is pretty diverse in general, all over the state. What about you?
I grew up in Koreatown.
Yes. You got mugged
Yeah.
as a teenager.
No, it's a rite of passage here in Los Angeles.
You know the city, and I know like the valley.
Yeah,
Yes.
basically.
Yeah.
You're the Valley girl, I'm the city boy.
Yeah.
Basically. And as a city boy, it's very weird. When I first got into my first major studio, I was like, why is everybody not from here? And I can't relate to anyone. And everybody feels like they're walking on eggshells because they're not sure how to, approach the work culture properly.
Yeah.
It's just the most ridiculous thing.
It was very bizarre because
Yeah.
it's not in every aspect of life here for me. Before I was able to hang out with other people from LA, at least like a mix of people. Like in school we had a whole mix of people from all over, but like there was always like someone that I knew in the class that was like from here. And like there's something about like when you're from the same area, you just kind of know each other a little
Yeah.
bit better.
But like, my God, working in Hollywood, like big Hollywood,
Yeah.
it's like
No
I'm
one
not-
is from here.
I'm not in LA anymore.
Yeah, and because a certain kind of person dreams of working in Hollywood too. When you grow up in LA, for some reason, people in LA don't dream of working in Hollywood.
Right.
Like we don't have expectations. Like everyone I knew didn't think like working in Hollywood was a viable job.
We were always talked out of it. Isn't that strange that people elsewhere, the culture is like, oh, if you work in Hollywood, you're going to be a big shot and it's going to be great. But here it's like my parents and everyone, my teachers, like actively were like, no, you're Hollywood. Ha. Yeah,
like,
right.
Yeah, like no.
No way.
Maybe you'll probably be like a PA or
Oh yeah,
or
you're gonna
grip
like,
or
oh, if you
something.
want to work at Hollywood, you're gonna be grabbing coffee
Yeah.
for some asshole.
Yeah. So like this conversation of 10-year reunions, they're like, oh, I can't wait to like go back to my hometown wherever and like say that I work at DreamWorks. And like they all went down in the circle, I guess, because DreamWorks, we don't have cubicles, we have pods, we have circular cubicles. So they all kind of had similar sentiments. Well, if they already had their 10-year reunion, they'll be like, yeah, they're like so impressed that like, oh, the big guy from the big shot from like Hollywood came back, and like, wow, tell me more about your job in Hollywood. And then it came to me. And then I thought about it for a second, and I was like, at my 10-year reunion, I'm not sure anyone would care that I work at DreamWorks. And and they're like, what? What do you mean? I was like, well, I grew up here. Everyone who grew up here, like, they're not all that impressed that I work in Hollywood, which is why, if you know me, I don't really say
Right.
where I work or what I do or
Right.
whatever.
So if you work, like, let's say if you worked at DreamWorks and you went back to Texas and you're like, yeah, man, I'm a big shot Hollywood person, the social proof is like, oh my gosh, you really made it.
Yeah.
If I say shit like that here, you're like, yeah, so what?
Yeah.
You work in Hollywood?
Cool.
Wow, what an
What else
idiot.
do you do? Yeah. I mean, this is like to another LA person.
Yeah.
I mean,
we have, like, LA people think of LA differently.
yeah, than people who are not from here.
Yeah.
And-
this is like, we all know this is not real.
Yeah.
None of this is real.
Yeah, which is why when you do work in Hollywood, there's this weird aura of like keeping up with the Joneses. But it's a little bit different though. It's people think you or anyone, like their coworker, is living this like fancy LA life that they also have to live, whereas like people from LA are like, I have no idea what you thought LA was or is, and what you think you have to be once you start working in Hollywood. But like, this is a job. I'm gonna like go get boba in the valley or something. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what you think kind of life I live. And so that was the first instance that I realized, like, oh, they're talking when they're speaking, especially online, let's say Facebook or Twitter or whatever. A lot of this gloating and this elitism isn't because they think, oh, I'm a LA person, I am so much better than you. No, they're talking to their friends and family back home.
Yeah.
The ones that they're gloating to at their 10-year reunion. They're picturing them in their mind and all the bullying that they had to go through or whatever.
Oh,
it
like, oh,
was.
you're such a nerd. You like anime.
Yeah.
And then all that pent up,
Ooh, I'll show you. I'll be a big shot, and you're gonna be a gas station worker.
like, I'm gonna make it work for myself. And then they do, and then they get to rub it in everyone's face
Yeah.
that I work in Hollywood. And they'll say all sorts of stuff in the captions. Hashtag all sorts of things. Make doubly sure they specify the location. Musso and Frank's, Astro Burger, fucking In-N-Out. Oh, I have I know what In-N-Out tastes like, and you
And
don't.
Naka. Yeah, that's a famous sushi restaurant that a lot of Disney people like to brag about going to together, specifically together. But
Let's take a picture, everybody.
okay, we need like 10 times.
And it's like in Hollywood, it's never about the lunch. It's
No.
about the documentation of the lunch.
Yeah, and
It's
who
never
you're with.
about like the meeting. It's about the picture of the person you had the meeting with. That's what it's about here.
Yeah, yeah. It's really funny who they don't take pictures with.
Yeah. Pay attention to that, everybody. Because it can get funny if you know the relationship.
Yeah, it's really funny. Yeah, what to watch.
Yeah.
Like, it's interesting you took pictures with that person, but not with that friend.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay. But on top of that, there's so Hollywood people have two layers to when they speak. There are two things they're trying to do. There's that they're trying to condescend to their family and friends in the Midwest or wherever they're from. And then there's also they want to look good in front of their coworkers.
Yeah. And
So-
that's all just social proofing. It's all
Yeah.
like, you believe in that? I believe in that too. You like that movie? It's my favorite movie too.
So it gets kind of nonsensical
Yeah.
after a while, just watching these people talk to each other or to the internet, I guess. And they're just, it's always a mix of like, am I saying the right thing? Are they going to approve of what I said? And like, do these views align with their views? And like, I hope they really like this dig, this joke. And I go like, oh, this is just so much cringe. As the more you work in Hollywood, the more you get good at reading between the lines and deciphering the hidden messages and all of this, and it gets
It's like
exhausting.
mostly rah, 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 rah. And then in that you have to hear, will you hire me? Something like that, right?
Or like, please like me.
Please like me. I'm not sure if this show's gonna last. But it just sounds most of the time, rah, 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 rah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're so great. Oh, this is so amazing. Oh, you're this on Twitter? Oh, I follow you.
Yeah, it's I like the phrase I coined for when this happens is they're practicing talking.
Yeah.
They're practicing speaking to each other like children in order to like not want to, I don't know, puke every single day overhearing these conversations at work.
That we just like have hours just talking about and dissecting as soon as we get home.
Yeah. You get really good at filtering out the nonsense. So it really does sound like wah, 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 wah. And then they sometimes they'll say something actually important.
Like what?
No, just like, the assignment's deadline is due next week. And then they go back to wah, 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 wah. And I'm like, God, it's sometimes like I sat right next to the water cooler at work. Like that was my assigned cubicle, and it was miserable for me because I just heard everything.
How could you even concentrate?
I couldn't.
Oh.
And I quickly found out the people around me in the
Oh, this is at Disney TV, right?
yeah, at the cubicles next to me, like a what's it called, like a joining cubicle, I guess. They're like, they also heard everything, and I didn't realize that till like late. And they also were like, yeah, God, I couldn't get any work done. And so that brings me to like in the workplace, how this translates to the workplace is it's really funny because there are a lot of people who like to LARP communism in animation, which is I don't know, bizarre.
Comrades,
to me.
we must assemble.
Yeah, so you told me once that like one of your coworkers says calls each other comrade, and then
That's not cute, bro. Like really, come on.
And I was like, no, really? Because like that's never happened to me before. But like when you told me that, I was like, I don't know what I would do if someone called me comrade in the workplace. I think I would burst out laughing in their face unintentionally. I just wouldn't be able to keep it in. I'd be like, what did you call? Wait. What did you just call me? You didn't. No. Did you just? Why would you call a Chinese person that? That's amazing. I just couldn't get over it. I was like, wow, that openly, huh? But also, I also know because, I mean...
Real quickly, though, I remember you were telling your friend, your best friend from back at home in the Valley that, like, oh yeah, I work, like, they're communists. And she was like, no. She's also Chinese, too. Like, she's also Chinese, too. And she's like, no.
Yeah.
No fucking way.
I was like, yeah. She just did not believe. I don't think she still doesn't believe me.
But the thing is, these aren't real communists, though.
No.
They're like make-believe communists.
Yeah, because it's like I've visited mainland China.
What are real communists like?
Stoic and not happy people, and very into policing everything you do and say. Let's just say that. And I've heard stories from my parents who are immigrants from a really bad time.
80s China.
Yeah. And yeah. They're not, to me, it's not for real. It's just they're just LARPing. It just makes them feel like it's part of their identity. It makes them special. And so in the workplace, you get a whole lot of talk of like, man, I hate conservatives. They're the worst.
But get this. Here's the funniest part. Like we said, there's a lot of people everywhere, right? Especially like the Midwest who come to work with us.
Yeah.
They don't know who's actually conservative.
Yeah.
Or they know one person's conservative,
and
right?
They hate them.
They hate them. They hate their guts. Yeah. But the hilarious part is their boss is conservative, right? Or what's funny is you get people like us, just like, man, so here's my introduction into this whole weird Hollywood hatred for middle America.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like I said, just some dumb kid from LA, just exactly like the stereotype is, I say bra, I go to the beach, I skate, it's just like
we talk like we're high all the time.
Yeah, we talk like we're high all the time. That's like the quintessence, like I'm just this kid. And like I never you know, my parents have like their whatever the fuck they listen to, like Mark Levin or whatever they listen to, but it's not like I paid attention, or it's just like maybe it's just I always thought it was like adult talk, and I just never cared about it. And when I went to college, I just focused really hard on getting good at what I do and trying to get hired. And then this is my first introduction to this shit. So this guy hires me, right? Like it's my very first like I think internship thing, and this guy was like, oh yeah, come work for me. I have this like small startup studio. And then little do I know, like the address he gives me to meet him up at was Film Roman, where they did The Simpsons. And it turns out this guy worked for The Simpsons. And I was like, oh wow, that's really cool. So like he's like telling me all this stuff, and this is my first taste. Like, whoa, this is where they make The Simpsons. I've been watching The Simpsons ever since I was little. Like, so I'm freaking out inside, but like, you know, school trained me like, be professional,
Yeah.
don't be silly or whatever. But he started talking about all this stuff. Like he was one of those people who would invite you out to lunch and then would just talk the entire lunch, and you just sit there and listen. You know, but like this guy would talk about like, you know, we have to make content for he said something like, we have to make content for the lowest common denominator, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, what's the lowest what is this? And he's like, you know those people. And I'm like, and he's like, you know, the people who live in middle America. And then still I was like the cowboys?
Yeah, we're like, what?
Like the people who ride the horses? What's wrong with them?
Yeah, exactly.
What's wrong with the people who ride horses, play the blues, and you know, go yeehaw and shit? Like what's wrong with them? And then they're like, and he's like, oh well, I think he at that point was like, oh shit,
Like
this kid doesn't know jack shit about anything. So I'm gonna like leave it at that. At least he was at least decent enough to stop right there. But like you've heard of this kind of talk before, yes,
yeah.
right?
So lowest common denominator is a pretty common phrase
in Hollywood.
Yeah,
because I was told that for the first time, and then you told me that, and I was like, whoa, I have a story like that too.
Yeah, I have a story like that too. I was for a while, after doing a whole bunch of comic conventions, I was hit up by a whole lot of different writers and publishers who wanted me to do a graphic novel, who draw a graphic novel, I guess. And all of them fell through because I don't like working for other people, or just working on other people's stuff sometimes. I have to be really passionate about it in order to like do something.
Well, they were
for
trying to
someone
fuck
else.
you.
That too.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were artists tend to get fucked more than like writers do. If you're interested in all things podcasts and audiobooks, I have a recommendation for you. I highly recommend Robert Cialdini's Influence, and you can listen to this at Audible. And if you don't already have an Audible subscription, head over to audibletrial.com/the Honey and Absinthe podcast, where you will get 1 free audiobook and 2 free Audible original audiobooks, so 3 audiobooks in total. So audibletrial.com/the Honey and Absinthe podcast. I was sitting down and having lunch with this guy who wanted me to draw a graphic novel for his story and develop like a whole pitch bible, because he didn't actually want to make a graphic novel. He wanted to make a pitch bible to sell, to make a movie, TV show, toys, all this stuff.
See, this is a phenomenon that started when we started graduating college. I'm sure a lot of the comic people know this. They make comics just to make movies out of them.
Yeah, because usually if you can sell the comic, then that's a built-in fan base, and it's like proven audience.
Market share.
Yeah.
Yes.
So many things. But yeah, so he wanted all these things, and I could already smell like, oh, you're not an artist. You don't actually want to make a graphic novel, which like I love the art of graphic novels and comics and stuff like that, and I really you have to have every intention to make a graphic novel for a graphic novel, not to make a pitch Bible for a movie.
The piece of art you have to make is the thing that it is. If your intent is to make a graphic novel, you're making a graphic novel. If you want to make a movie, that's a completely different process.
Make a movie, make a pitch, but he was saying, like, so he was pitching to me this idea he has, and he was like, so we want to make the designs as appealing as possible for the lowest common denominator. And this, again, was the first time I heard this word, this phrase, and I was like, what? And he was like, lowest common denominator. And
it's
I was
so
like,
funny. They always go, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like,
And
no,
like,
actually,
no,
not everybody's an asshole.
Yeah.
Actually, not everybody knows not everybody has this intense hatred for like people.
Yeah.
For just because it's popular to do so with your coworkers. It's popular to shit on conservatives with your coworkers.
Yeah.
It's just like really fun to do. And you expect me, this normal kid who doesn't know anything about this shit, to just follow suit with your like weird animosity towards people? Like, I'm not down for that,
No.
bro.
So yeah, I was like, I don't understand what you mean. And he was like, just like,
And also, these are the people telling you what to say and think and how to
Yeah.
like how do you tolerate that shit? Like, my God, these are the same people like, oh, you should be kinder. Don't be racist. Like, all this shit. Meanwhile, they have such contempt for people in middle America.
And I think it's because of, I don't know, they were bullied growing up by these people, or they think like, oh, I made it, so like I must know something more than the people back home, or whatever. I just it's sad because I don't feel this weird need to like show up my friends in the city over. Like, I don't think I could impress them.
I don't know. I thought we became artists because we just wanted to make really
art,
awesome
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
To make cartoons. I don't know.
I don't know.
And he was like, the people, like the people in the Midwest, and I was like,
So, yeah.
Like, I couldn't comprehend what he was saying, and like I had to like go home to really like
Ruminate on it.
realize, wow, I don't think like that. I don't believe that.
Yeah.
That's so insulting. And I was just like, I don't think I'm gonna work with this guy. That's awful. That's awful. I had to make appealing enough designs for the lowest common oh God, it's just so mean and just
And condescending and like you think you fucking know everything.
Yeah.
I hate that shit, man.
But and the funniest, so we kind of briefly touched on it, the saddest part, and I guess, but like at least it's both sad and it's like a light in the darkness. So these people are just openly shitting on conservatives in the workplace. They just go like, oh, I hate conservatives. And then the other person, because that's what you have to say, like clockwork, goes, yeah, me too.
Because you're their friend and all that stuff.
What a lot of people don't know is there are actually a whole lot of conservatives in Hollywood.
What? No. I'm sure a place like Disney is full of progressives.
No.
What?
I have this theory that, well, it's not really a theory. I think Disney's actually really conservative, and they're conservatives pretending. They're like closeted conservatives. They're like conservatives pretending to be liberals, pandering to liberals, which is why, not liberals, I guess progressives, they're pandering to the woke, I guess.
Yes.
And
the anointed ones.
Yeah. And that's why even the anointed ones don't like their content, because it feels wrong, because it's conservatives pandering to the woke. Whereas there are certain other studios who I genuinely think are genuinely woke studios. And the saddest part is, like, me, I feel like I blend in perfectly.
I know.
Like,
and INTJ has done this before.
Yes.
A long time ago. Explain.
Long time ago.
Explain.
People assume certain things about me when they look at me and hear my voice, I guess, too. And the way I act, I tend to come across very young. Like, I don't look like a 28-year-old woman Most people assume I'm 20. And because I look and sound a certain way, they assume all sorts of things. They assume I am a millennial, but they assume I'm a quintessential millennial. Especially when I had pink hair. And it's really funny because it's not like I care. I'm someone who actually, I don't like talking about myself all that much in conversation. So all sorts of people talk to me and confess a whole lot of things. I think when they realize I'm not what you think I am, then the ones who aren't like the super woke open up to me. And
yeah, you're like their counsel. It's like this one will listen to me instead of try to fire me or try to take my job away from me. And
but also on the other side, the super woke feel comfortable to say certain things to me. So I'm just stuck somewhere in between. And I know for a fact, as these two people are shitting on conservatives openly in the office, there's a conservative in the cubicle right next to them who can't say anything, who can't do anything, who just has to sit there and take it.
Yeah. So they get to go home and say, oh, those dumb Californians, they're so with their fangled ideas, those idiots. And then but most of the time they're not saying shit because they're afraid.
Yeah.
And that's like, you know, whatever you think about people in the Midwest or whatever the fuck you believe in, it's like, what kind of workplace environment is that?
Yeah.
And I excuse me for being idealistic here, but I thought we were supposed to be a team united to like fucking make an awesome piece of art, you know?
Yeah.
But like, it's not like that. You're dancing around all sorts of touchy subjects and minefields and things you shouldn't say, or you're not really sure you should. I don't know. It's just, everything's just so confusing.
And so I have a story actually where I think I kind of told this story before. I was on the show, and this one person on the show, because we're in LA especially, felt very comfortable just talking about her political beliefs out loud in a very, very condescending way.
Obnoxious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she would just shit on conservatives, just say certain things, and whatever. She can believe what she wants to believe. She can say what she wants to say. Problem is, she did it so loudly and openly in an open air office at DreamWorks that everyone in that side of the building can hear her. And what she didn't, I think, understand is most of that crew came here from Nashville.
So imagine you're making your big fucking break here in Hollywood. You come all the way here. It's DreamWorks is amazing. Oh, it's just some office in some building. Okay, great. That's kind of cool. And then you have this person constantly just berating what you're all about.
Yeah.
You. Literally you. And like, we're all making cartoons. Like, what the hell, you know?
And the funniest part is like there's one instance where like she was particularly going on like a rant, and I just kind of was like, oh boy, here we go. And I looked around to the crew that I know is from Nashville, and specifically this is a show that used to be a Christian preschool show. It's just so hilarious. And I just saw so many uncomfortable faces.
Man.
Like, they couldn't say a thing, and they just had to put up with this. And, like, just her demeaning people like them, and just without just not knowing where she was. And just not knowing, like, man, like, you realize this makes it really uncomfortable for other people to work with you. Like, I believe politics should just not be in the workplace, period.
We're here to do a job, you know?
Yeah, but in Hollywood, it's very openly okay to be one way and not the other. And it's really sad because as students, because it takes a while to train to be good enough to work at these studios, as students, you work so hard, you're so laser focused at being good character designer and having a great portfolio, whatever.
You literally, I don't think, can get hired if you're not 100% devoted to it when you're learning, especially.
Yeah, so you're like learning so hard, you're focused so hard. You don't learn these things about working in Hollywood specifically.
You're worried about like, oh my God, are they gonna, bust my chops, my perspective, or my proportions? Like, are they gonna? That's like what you worry about when you're at school. Like, oh, am I good enough to work at DreamWorks or Cartoon Network? But when it really comes down to it, it's like, you as a person, which is hilarious.
Really,
like it has nothing to do with, like, Hollywood has nothing to do with the creativity.
No, no, at all. Like, you think, oh, I'm going to be spending most of my days being creative. No, you're spending most of your days pretending to be a commie. Like, I never thought I would have to have that skill. I never thought I'd have to be like, oh God, how do I say this in a way
I haven't done my research on that, but you go on believing that.
Yeah, cool. Whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure.
God, it's the worst. And so you think like, okay, well, the people are vain and they're awful, whatever. But it doesn't stop, like, however you want to act. Anyone can make good art. Anyone can be, what is the correlation between that and making good content? Like, you think it's separate. No, because there's also a whole lot of ego wrapped up into making content in Hollywood. Because you think, at least this is where I was coming from. I wanted to be a showrunner because I wanted to make good art. I wanted to make good content, and I wanted to be able to control that content and like make it as best as I can, and that's the only reason why I wanted to be a showrunner. Once I realized being a showrunner is not really about that, I was like, oh, then that's not what I wanted to begin with anyways. What a lot of people want in Hollywood when they want to become a showrunner is to just be a showrunner. They don't care about the artistry of it. They just want to impress each other. But they don't care about like maybe bettering children or making like innovative content or any of that. They just simply want the power. They want to go home and be like, I'm a big man now in Hollywood or whatever. And that's so when you have all this ego wrapped up in it, if you're not concerned about making just good content, period, you're just trying to climb that ladder and do all these things, of course we're going to get the content we're getting now. Of course it's just so like devoid of any meaning and artistry and like just a vision, because there was no vision. They just wanted that title. So an example to show how wrapped up in social proof and like impressing each other that these people are just so obsessed with. It's like that's not on the forefront of their mind. Is there's this artist in animation who I guess is a fairly large well-known artist at the time. A lot of animation artists, Hollywood artists, I guess, really care about showing how much money and wealth that they have or don't have to each other for some reason. And so what you'll find a lot of times is a lot of the women throw big, extravagant weddings.
Big. So big.
Like destination weddings.
Yeah.
And it's just such a waste of money.
Of course you'd say that.
It costs so much money. And like I saw this one artist was like bragging on social media essentially about how she bought her wedding shoes, and they were like these jewel encrusted Christian Louis Vuitton like wedding shoes. And I was like, that's so much money for a shoe worn on one day. Why? Oh, for that photo and to brag to all the people who they invite their coworkers to their wedding.
It's full of coworkers.
Yeah.
It's so strange.
It's very strange. And they so that like on the day their coworkers can see like, look at how much I can afford. It's just it's something else. And like if you think they will go to the great lengths just for that, what do you think they're gonna do to like advance in their career? Like, I don't think they care about.
But meanwhile, these types of artists are all like preaching about, you know, the rich, blah blah blah, the rich are bad. I'm just like, I don't know. You are pretty well to do yourself. I don't know what it is.
And the saddest part is like, they all know this. Like it's not like they're all happy with this whole situation, because like again, I sat next to the water cooler at work and it was the worst and I heard everything. But it also means I have a lot of great stories to tell. There was this pretty big writer on this show, and he
At which studio?
Disney. And he was complaining, just like all of us complain, about everything I have ever said on this podcast or in my Why I Quit Disney video, which is why I'm like, God, you guys all agree with me. What are you trying to do? And he was like just complaining about the normal shit that we all complain about.
Which are, for the people who don't know, what's shit that people complain about in Hollywood?
Bureaucracy, the higher ups don't care about you, all this stuff.
Senpai doesn't notice me. I hate it.
Yeah, but
Fuck this
also
place.
like I benefit from this
somehow.
And he was just complaining, and then he was like, I'm like, they don't know the stuff I know. Like I could really say some stuff. You know, once my career is done, I'm going to write a book about all this. I can do that, you know, to them. I was just overhearing this, and I was just kind of like, oh my God, you're such a boomer. Like, who reads anymore?
If you want to reach these kids, it's not through the page.
Yeah, I was like, God, it was just such a boomer moment. And I was like, God. And at the same time, he also like actively poo-poos like YouTubers and YouTube content. And then like clockwork, I come out with my Why I Quit Disney video to just be like, hey, art students, you might want to know some of this. They're like, no, it's not. I'm like, wait, I just heard you.
She's a liar. There are all sorts of different experiences.
I was like, I heard you, because I'm right here. I'm like 5 feet away from you as you're like complaining about the same stuff. I'm just like, man, you all know, but like for some reason you want to keep up this illusion of what it is, like the same illusion that tricked you into doing all of this. It's just sad. But that brings me to like efficiency and why the final reason why like they're not going to listen to us. They're not, because of, again, all these, like the people are the main problem, but then there's also inefficiency in the studios. And I think everyone has a really bad understanding about how exactly incompetent everyone is. But like you actually have good experiences with bureaucracy at smaller studios.
I really like small studios. Of course, the big studios pay the big bucks, and thank goodness I'm on a show that's, you know, part of one of the biggest studios in the world. But the way it's run is run like really small, like my experience at Starburns. It's a very non-bureaucratic show, thank God. Which is amazing because the show is so popular. But I really find that when you are just more hands-off and you just trust the people who work, you can get some amazing results and with less friction.
I think smaller studios definitely have less bureaucracy, and I think they're more efficient because you can just go to whoever's above you to ask if something's okay or whatever, and like if they don't know, the head honcho isn't like that far away. They'll just make a decision, and that is that. But in my experiences, I mean, I've had experiences at smaller production studios as well, and they are so much more efficient. And bigger studios, though, for some reason, people have this assumption that a studio like Disney is like really efficient and really organized, because how could they become this big monopoly essentially without having some semblance of good organization, good leadership, good whatever. I'm sorry to tell you, you give them way too much credit. My first day at Disney, for example, they didn't have anyone ready to greet me. I had to like essentially almost sneak into the building, and when they brought me to my desk, they kind of didn't know what to tell me to do. They were just like, okay, sign on, I guess, and start working. And I was like, you mean
work on what?
Yeah, like on what? Who do I report to? You didn't introduce me to anyone. And then so that was like my first impression of them, and it continues through my time working there, where there are little things that really add up that make it like, oh, that's why nothing ever gets done.
Oh, would you please share some?
Well, one thing is like, why do I, like, it's kind of infuriating that like for the longest time nothing was named properly. Like, all the files weren't named properly. So it became a nightmare for the PAs and the director, everyone, to look for something just to reference. Like, imagine you want to go back to a scene from like a few seasons ago, and you can't find that scene because it's named all sorts of weird. And so it becomes like just like a shit show. And then like things get from the higher ups, they have a really hard time making decisions, because it seems like it goes through like 4 different hands, 4 different like people who make decisions before it comes back down to you. And then you do something, and then like the person above you doesn't really have a say, and the person above them doesn't really have a say, and then you just keep going and going, and it comes back, and then it's like, it's just so inefficient. And to the point where like they really don't have plans for what's next a lot of the times. Like, it seems planned sometimes, completely by accident in my opinion. So like they would try, and then shows that should have been done or started get canceled because no one can decide, or someone decided and then they changed their mind, and then it's just crazy.
You think that's like, oh, it's like Doctor Strangelove. They're in the big boardroom. They're like, well, today we are going to make sure that we are going to reinvigorate this franchise. No, it's like, should we do this? No. Should we do this? Not enough market share. Should we do this? No. Oh, is it probably too offensive?
Or they'll say yes, and then they'll say no later, and then they'll just change. It's just confusing, and like nothing will get done. Yeah. And proof? I don't have any, except look at Disney Plus.
Oh, whoa.
It's sparse.
It's true. Pretty sparse.
With new content. Yeah.
I wonder why.
Yeah. So that's exactly why Hollywood is not going to listen to our ideas, and they're not going to save themselves, because they just can't. But here are our ideas for how to save Hollywood.
I think one of the biggest ways to save Hollywood, if it even can be saved, is to make more comedy. Comedies are generally very, very cheap to make. They're just like horror movies. Very, very low investment. A lot of the time you just need like a pool, a house, like just the sets are very, very cheap. There's not a lot that goes on into it. Hopefully it's just good writing and good acting.
I also think like comedies are really poignant. Like they like point out certain things about people, and it's like you laugh at the truth.
Yeah.
It's not.
I want to
same.
laugh at us again.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand why everybody's taking themselves so goddamn seriously.
Yeah. It's really cringy, the kind of humor that is out there now. It's not, in my opinion, comedy. Every time we try to watch
I haven't seen a comedy in years. Like, I mean, like,
A true comedy.
like, we watch Booksmart, we watch whatever those stupid kids acting fools.
mid-90s.
No, that's not a comedy. Good Boys. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So bad. Was not funny at all. Barely funny. I think people thought that too.
Yeah, we need
It's
to
not
bring
funny.
back comedy, and I think we need to bring back different perspectives. I think it's really bad that we have only one kind of content, one kind of message that people have these days, and it's all leading in one direction. And it's just really one note, because I don't actually mind this kind of content. I think all content should exist. I think all of it is like important to have different perspectives. But the thing is, like, the workplace, what we just explained, has made it impossible to have different perspectives, because you don't know if you're gonna get fired for having just simply a different perspective. Like, for example, back in, I want to say, like the 70s or I think 50s actually, where Hollywood had like a censorship board called the Legion of Decency. And ironically, this was created by the Catholics.
Darn Catholics.
And they would censor everything and everyone because of, I don't know, decency or
Man,
whatever.
that's so annoying, isn't it?
Yeah. And now it's just flipped so hard the other way. Like, just like the other day, I discovered, for some reason, people on Twitter are talking about, what is it? The Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
What is that?
It's where they want to, like, re-educate you, basically.
Oh, they want to start putting us in white vans.
Yeah, they want to
In
put you,
camps.
in re-education camps, and like make a list of everyone who thinks a certain way, and like make sure you don't think wrong.
Oh, I'm pretty sure we're going to that van.
Oh yes, yes.
I'll meet you there.
Yeah,
We'll have one last meal together.
yeah.
We'll try to make love one more time.
Oh my god.
And then, I don't know, I guess that's when we die. What would your last words be?
Well, I would walk up to the wall, I'd bow my head,
Why would you bow?
and then I would go, "Fuck you!" The funny thing about this is, like, the what is it? The Legion of Decency was created around like the 50s, right about like the 70s. That censorship board went away, and then the movies got good. Also, like, Hollywood movies at the time weren't doing so hot.
Yeah.
They, again, were mostly musicals, westerns, slapstick comedy, and people just weren't into that anymore.
Yeah, but there were like these kids who were paying attention to Italian neorealism and for the French New Wave, and they went to this very, very famous film school in California called USC, and they're like that's a ton of people, not just from the group from USC, but like, Scorsese, Kubrick, they all came out here because like the studios literally were like, nobody wants to watch musicals anymore. I don't know what to do. So let's just give these kids, these ragtag kids, these college educated kids, they seem to because they would see their success in independent circuits, and they would be like, well, I mean, we could give these people, these kids a shot, I guess.
What do we have to lose? We're hemorrhaging money.
We are hemorrhaging money. Lo and behold, there's Kubrick. Lo and behold, there's Scorsese. There's John Milius. There's
George Lucas,
Robert Altman,
Yeah.
Spielberg, everyone. Oh, my favorite, Paul Schrader.
Yeah.
Schrader's
And
great.
the amazing part, they're so young.
Yeah, they were kids.
They were in their early 20s.
Yeah, they're just as young as us.
Yeah.
Even some of them even younger.
And they got the chance to do whatever they wanted because the Hollywood was at their wits' end. They're like, you guys seem to know what the youth want, what people actually want to watch, and we're pouring these these budgets are getting bigger and bigger with these musicals, and no one wants to watch them.
Yeah.
And so
Man, that really echoes today, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And big budget, like The Sound of Music is basically Infinity War.
Yeah.
What happened after that? I don't know. That was it for everything, I guess.
I guess, yeah. And another reason why I think movies got their budgets got bigger and bigger was because of TV, was because
they had to compete with TV,
yeah,
basically.
Yeah. And to differentiate themselves, they were like, well, we are movies, we're the magic of cinema, we're better, we're different.
We also have a bigger budget than TV.
Yeah.
So we can have explosions and train wrecks and all this amazing stuff.
But didn't help. Just because you pour money and budget and something into these really like I don't know, pristine plastic movies doesn't mean it's gonna be a great movie. Doesn't mean people are gonna watch. And once they started investing and getting these young talent, and I think at first they genuinely had a very small, tiny little budget and told really small, tiny human stories.
Much.
Yeah,
you could do so much with a tiny budget.
Obviously, I mean, it grew eventually as they got more notorious. But
they're not going to give them all the money with their first project, right?
Yeah. And that's so amazing. And I think we need to be daring with the people we give chances to,
and the art that we make,
and I don't think it requires a giant budget. Infinity, these movies, these blockbuster movies have ridiculous budgets.
Take animation for example. Why are we still doing CG?
Yeah.
Why? It's expensive for expensive sake.
Yeah.
At this point.
And it seemed like we were progressing too. We were gonna do something new.
Yeah, like with Spider-Verse, which actually looked fresh and amazing. Still, did you see the new trailer for the Disney movie?
Yeah.
Who cares? Who cares? Seriously.
And the funniest part is the origin of Disney.
Oh, this is great. I love this story.
Disney.
So the studios were having a really lackluster year.
Yeah. I mean, so the decline of old school, the golden age of Hollywood, I guess, started around the 40s. Disney came about around late 40s, I think, with Snow White. And the most hilarious part is so Hollywood used to be they used to have salaried crews. So if you knew what studio made what movie because it was the same actor, the same crews that made that movie every time for that studio. So these actors became household names, just like they are today, and they you want to have these actors in your movies, and it's they think your movie can't be successful without a big name actor or whatever.
Yeah, it's the hubris thing. It's oh, your project isn't going to make it because I have this actor, I have this director, we are this studio, and it's just a lot of that.
Yeah.
But then there's this guy who made cartoons. What did he do?
So his name was Walt Disney, and he made this little independent studio at the time, independently funded, and he made this cartoon called Snow White that no one believed in, that had no famous actors in it whatsoever. The little
project that could, by this little tiny animation studio that no one believed in,
that no one knew about.
Yeah.
And it blew the box offices out of the water. It made so much money, and Hollywood was just embarrassed. They were just how did this nobody make all this money with a no-name like movie. Like they didn't have a famous actor in it at all. How how is it that this guy was able to like independently fund this while we have these big budgets and we can't possibly make as much money as this? That's crazy. And wow, just look how far we've come.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah, isn't that sad?
That's so sad. I wonder what Disney would think about all this.
I think he'd hate everything.
Yeah, I think he'd be embarrassed.
There's actually, in the studios, they have Disney's original sketches and notes for when he started the studio, and there's like an outline of his priorities and how he planned everything to a T. He knew he wanted like a merchandising arm of Disney, like, and he knew he wanted like theme parks, all this stuff. But the thing is, I think at the very top, he made animated movies was the number one priority. Like he was like, this is
not the toys, not the theme park.
No, yeah.
Yeah, it's the movie, the project.
And I think he's rolling in his grave right now.
Shame.
Yeah. Anyways, look at that. Disney was once this independent guy who was the little guy, like the little studio that could. And we need that again. If we're to progress, if we're to like make a comeback in Hollywood, like if Hollywood is to actually make good content again.
If the moving picture is to survive, period, at this point.
Yeah. I think we need to bring back more independent cinema. Take a chance on them. Grow smaller studios. Like, I challenge you, all you people out there listening to this, watching this, whatever, to like wherever you're from, to make your own little independent studio wherever you're from. Don't come here.
Yeah, as we talked about, like, the people in Hollywood hate you.
Yeah.
They fucking hate you.
They think you're talentless.
They think
and
you're...
dumb.
Okay, so here's how it is. The people in Hollywood think you're talentless. The people in Silicon Valley think you're stupid. And then the people in politics think they know better than you. Well, what we want to share, what this was always about, is to encourage everyone that whatever you believe about this reality, that like Disney is the biggest thing ever and like I can't possibly go up against giants. Disney went up against a giant.
Yeah.
What are you doing? What are you afraid of? Like, just because you know, like, oh, big, like Hollywood is the place to make movies. No, make a movie at home. Make a movie where you're at. If you're at Texas, if you're at Nashville right now, make a little industry for yourself. Compete with Hollywood so that maybe we can have better shit.
Yeah, and again, different perspectives.
Different perspectives.
Because like we can't.
And honestly, as you can see, like I audiences only want two things: not to be lectured to. Number one at this point, that's the number one thing.
Yeah.
It used to be like not even an issue. But the number one thing at this point, please don't lecture audiences anymore. Please don't. And then number two is tell a good story. Just good.
That's it.
Good.
Yeah.
That's it. Just help people forget about the shit that is going on for a bit. Like, why are you reminding them constantly about how shitty everything is? So I went to school right next to the theater, right? So I would, after school, if I had like a really crummy day, I would go to the theater and I would watch I Love You, Man. I would watch 40-Year-Old Virgin. I watched The Hangover for the first time with my friends, and I couldn't breathe. I couldn't breathe because it was so funny. When was the last time we did that, everybody? When was the last time we laughed together? I don't even remember.
At ourselves.
Yeah, at ourselves too.
Like, man, everyone takes themselves so seriously. You can't laugh at anyone anymore, including ourselves. But, you know, the point of all of this is we don't care about saving Hollywood.
Yeah, no.
I don't care that Hollywood is dying. Good riddance. But I do care about saving the art of filmmaking. I think it's dying with Hollywood as the Hollywood is dying.
Hollywood's also getting all of the most talented people.
Yeah.
And those people are just going to just make bullshit for Hollywood.
Yeah, and I the thing is, like, I don't consider myself a very political person, and that's why I'm like, I don't know, all messages, all art is fine. So, and I think,
Yeah, art's not going to hypnotize you
Yeah.
to be a certain way.
And-
Yeah, people have brains. you
yeah,
know?
and I think, like, just because, like, oh, these really left-leaning people are making really pretentious, like, condescending, cringy movies, I have to go make, like, I don't know, really conservative. No, that's not
no.
at
That's
all
not the
what
move.
I mean.
Like what I said, two things. We'll talk about who's starting a movie studio or project studio in Nashville, but like
Yeah.
two things all you have to do, right? Just make sure you tell a nice story, like that helps people kind of. Oh, what would David Mamet say? He said would remove the burden of living or something like
Yeah.
that. Something amazing, because we all have it, right? So make something that removes the burden of living or something like that. Something that Mamet would say. And don't condescend people.
Yeah.
People don't want to go to the movies to have a finger wagged at them about how much of a shitty person they are.
Yeah.
They know that already. I'm pretty sure they know that already.
I think it's just simply just tell a good story, and if you do, most of the time you'll be able to create empathy in other people, and people will be able to like see things from your perspective, or it's just good. Different perspectives are good. It doesn't matter. Like, I don't think people should be out there with some kind of ulterior agenda to like insert political messaging into their movies just to spite another group of people. Yeah.
That's so
silly.
cringe.
But
Oh my god.
Yeah.
No. All you have to do is to beat Hollywood is to tell a good story. That's it. Like, clearly, it's like impossible for them to do that right now.
yeah, because they're too wrapped up in their own egos and all the things that we talked about. And so, yeah, Ben Shapiro is making his own little production studio, basically. And
Good old Nashville. Lots of talented people in Nashville.
yes, so Ben Shapiro, what are you waiting for? Get me to direct your movies. I'm the best one you got.
He really is. And you won't find anybody more passionate to take down Hollywood than you, I guess.
Oh yeah. Oh man. It's like when he started Daily Wire. Yes. But yeah, stop with all these big budgets too. I think we need to stop with these big budget deepfakes. They're so ridiculous. I think limitations, and especially limitation of budget, is really, really good. And now that like we have all the technology in the world and all the money in the world to do certain things, doesn't necessarily mean we should. And like, these really big budget deepfakes are just really, first of all, not quite there yet, and I think should be used sparingly. And to spend so many millions of dollars to get like
A wrinkle from an actor's face.
yeah, to erase a wrinkle from an actor's face, or to put an actor's face on a different body
Yeah.
for like the rest of your trilogy is just kind of ridiculous. And like just like Kubrick said, you do the math and you realize, I can probably make a movie for much less than what these
idiots
studios
are
are
doing,
making them for.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck are you spending your money on?
Like, it always starts with some little dude like Kubrick or Disney going like, I want to do this thing. And looks like those people are making a lot of money and spending a lot of money trying to make this thing. I think I can make a thing just as good with less budget.
Yeah. I mean, look at
And like some of the best things are,
yeah, look at like Bo Burnham in 8th grade.
What is that movie? A pool, a mall, and a few houses.
Yeah.
That's 8th grade.
And a few unknown actors.
Yeah. That are really good. That's it.
And a really good script.
Yeah.
Really relatable story. So like, how much? I bet that film cost nothing to make.
Yeah.
And it was a great movie. directed by a YouTuber.
Yeah.
So
Amazing that a YouTuber could do so much better than a lot of these movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Far better.
Far better.
Far more relatable too.
Yeah. Oh my God. 8th grade is so relatable. Hollywood, with all of their gilded writers, cannot possibly write a movie that relatable.
They try.
They try to fail.
And I guess that brings me to, I guess, my overall point in this, which might be like out of left field. It's that like artists are important for exactly this reason. A lot of people say politics is downstream from culture, and who controls the culture? And a lot of people in Hollywood, artists in general, musicians.
Hollywood and the music industry have all the artists in their pocket right now.
Yeah.
Because they all were ridiculed as kids. Oh, you're never going to be anything. And now they're something, and they just want to work, and they're afraid to not be an employee.
Yeah. And the reason why, like I get it. I get no one cares about us artists right now because apparently the world is burning. And yeah, that's perfectly fine. We get it. No, like, especially like compared to musicians even, no one cares about artists. But you should, because we can help you. We control the culture. We are really good observers. Because we were bullied growing up, because we're like overly sensitive, we observe human nature. We are able to distill it down in a way that is easily digestible and far more like empathy inducing. And like you can really see a perspective through someone else's eyes through movies. Like literally, that's what movies are for. And yet there's a whole group of people who don't know how to use us, who don't know how, like, realize that we can, if we make culture and we can change culture, we can like show people like there's a different way of being, there's a different way of thinking, there's a different way of empathizing and all this stuff. And yet, like, sure, go on ignoring us when we are very, very useful to you. So I think we're like, we need to like protect art. We need to protect filmmaking.
There's so commentating has become really, really popular on YouTube, especially when you're talking about news and gaming, or gaming news, or just anything really, even tech. I think a lot of the new talking heads, especially the ones who are really taking up the mantle and like really telling the news how it is, or really putting themselves in all, I don't know, in their reporting, I guess. I guess I should, instead of being vague, I should just say like people like Jeremy, people like Tim, those types of people like Nerdrotic, like they can only go so far. I think I think you have to reach out to creatives. I think you have to. If everyone hates Hollywood and the music industry so much, and you want to change something, find an artist.
Yeah.
And that's all you need, and then you can make something amazing.
Because we're able to speak to people on a different way, a different level.
Move people.
Yeah.
And like there's only a significant amount of you need to wake up that you can do on radio, on YouTube.
Yeah.
You have to move people with art at the end of the day.
And I always struggled with this idea of like why artists are important, because I grew up the way I grew up. Like, I'm Asian. Obviously, Asians tend to be very like, what are you going to do with art? Like, this is such a useless thing. Go be a doctor. Go be an accountant. Go be a lawyer. Go be anything more useful than an artist. So I also grew up with a lot of people who, feel the same way because their parents feel the same way. And I think it's just the common thought that most people have. Like, art is just kind of useless, but we have it. So one of my friends growing up would say things like, art is useless. There's no purpose for it. I don't think it should exist. And like, compared to like doctors, we help people because she wanted to be a doctor. And I didn't really have a good retort, I guess, to her. I was like, okay, you think what you think, but I love this thing. And I never knew how to explain it to her why art is important. And I realized it's because everyone else is really bad at storytelling and explaining the world to each other. If, like, for example, everything we live and breathe and touch is by design. Someone designed that for a reason, and you don't think about it, but someone spent a long time thinking about it. And like it's why you like the things you like. It's why you watch the things you watch. It's why you listen to the things.
It's why you like the way the new PlayStation looks or the new Xbox looks. Somebody scrutinized over every single crevice and angle.
Yeah. And the reason why people think art is useless is because we're so good at our jobs that our importance is invisible.
I believe so.
Yeah. And like we really do change the way people think, just in ways that people don't even realize. Like, why do you drink from that bottle? Why are you attracted
to that piece of furniture?
Why are you attracted to that person?
Yeah.
Everything is by design, and that's the power of art. So enough waxing poetic about how much art is so important.
What's our recommendation for today?
Ingmar Bergman's Scenes from a Marriage. I was studying this film on Criterion. You can watch it on the Criterion collection.
It's fantastic streaming service. If you're studying film or an art student, you must delete your Netflix and get Criterion channel. No excuses. You shouldn't be watching junk on Netflix. You should be watching like the best the world has to offer. And that's what Criterion collection is.
And this Ingmar Bergman is a very famous. Is he also a screenplay director?
He's both. He's screenplay and director. Yeah.
And he is referenced constantly by other filmmakers. They will just never tell you that they took all his ideas, all his shot language, and it's a really great movie because it's so simple. It's such a it's.
What is it like an interior of a house mostly?
Usually, yeah. And it's just usually 2 actors, maybe 3 or 4 occasionally, and it's all just really good observation of human nature. People don't write like this anymore. It's a little bit existential. He gets a little like, oh, the world is a certain way. Oh, good
and
good has forsaken me.
Yeah. The silence. Yeah. He's known for his little crises.
But he is so observant about people, and then the way he films it is just so accurate. There's a scene that is basically like my definition of what like a relationship is like between a man and a woman.
Okay.
And it's basically the couple is sitting in bed and they're married. They're having discussions about like potentially having kids one day. And the wife is like, tell me what you actually think about having kids. And then the husband's like reading and he's like, I don't care. You choose if you want kids or not. And then she like is just like distraught because she thinks that there's some like ulterior motive or like what. No, you must have an opinion. Everyone has an opinion. You must have one. And he's like, no, I don't care. And I was like, that's exactly what a relationship is like.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I was like, a woman has their complexes about what the man thinks, and the man's just not thinking.
Yeah, at all.
Anyways, thank you for listening to this episode of the Honey and Absinthe podcast.
Please hit like and subscribe. Jingle our bells and buttons over there.
And head over to honeyandabsinthe.com for our merch. If you would like to support this channel, I am wearing the white shirt today. And we'll see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.